So hi, and in this question, so we have to find whether x is an integer or not, and we have to check whether x is an integer or not by the given two statements. And the statement one reads x by 3 is not an integer. That means if you substitute the value of x, then it should not be an integer. That means it can either be a fraction, so only a fraction, right, or even a decimal point. So there are only two possibilities, right? One, so x can be an integer or x is not an integer, right? So we'll consider our statement 1 first. So when we substitute the value of x, x by 3 is not an integer. So from statement 1, we can make a conclusion that x is not a multiple of 3, right? Why? Because if it is a multiple of 3, then this becomes an integer. So this alone we can come to a conclusion from statement 1. So it can't be 3, 6, 9 and so on. On the other hand, it can take the value of both 2, 1 by 2, 5, 1 by 5. So it has both the possibilities of being an integer and not an integer. Being an integer and not an integer, right? So it can be 7 or 1 by 7. So from statement 1, we can't conclude whether x is an integer or not. So now come to statement 2. They have said 3x is an integer. That means x can take the value of 1 by 3 or its multiple, right? So if you substitute 1 by 3, then we will get 1, which is an integer. But x can take the value of the integers too, right? So from minus infinity to plus infinity. It can take all the integer value, right? If you substitute minus 2, which will be 3 into minus 2, which is minus 6, which is an integer. So from this 2, it can take the value of minus 2, minus 1, 1, 2, 3, etc. And also 1 by 3, 2 by 6, 3 by 9, 4 by 12, all the fraction. So this also, it has an integer as well as a fraction. So we can't tell whether x is an integer or a fraction. So from both the statement, we can't conclude whether x is an integer or x is not an integer. So x is integer or x is not an integer. So from this, we can conclude both the statement is not sufficient to answer whether x is an integer or not. Fine? So that's it.